because I must have been saying stuff about doing chickens and stuff like that, and you're like, well, there's this permaculture documentary. Anyway, I finally watched it, and it just blew my mind. And I remember it was like all the lights went on in my brain and in my spirit and
you were
everything.
unstoppable after that.
It was like, this is it. This is what I've been looking for that I didn't know I was looking for.
Yeah.
The purpose of these videos is to really document our own journey as we try and transform our property using permaculture principles. We're learning everything as we go from scratch pretty much.
Well, thank you for joining me for this video.
That's all right.
What I wanted to do in this video is talk about, I guess, how it all started. Yeah? And it all started because of you, didn't it?
Oh, we're going way back there.
Yes, we are. Yeah. So what I remember is you were doing composting at the time we met.
I was attempting to anyway.
Yeah. And I remember you were at my place, and I think you said we can compost these tea bags or something. Or something like that. And I was just like, who cares? Why bother? For maybe a month or two, you tried to encourage me to watch a permaculture documentary. Why was that? Or what prompted that? Can you remember?
I think you must have hinted at wanting chickens or something like that. Or wanting to do some self-sufficiency stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, I've seen this video. It was ABC Gardening Australia, I think.
Yeah, we'll put it on the screen.
Yeah, Josh Byrne. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And it just covered everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, you took a lot of convincing to watch it, and then you finally did.
I remember thinking before we met, those few years before we met, that it'd be good to, just seeing the state of the world and everything, I was like, it'd be good to have a spot of land, where you could do gardening and do all that. So that was sort of in me. I think because I just hadn't heard the word permaculture, there was this that sort of just dismissing something that's new or something that I didn't understand, which was really silly. But because I must have been saying stuff about doing chickens and stuff like that, and you're like, well, there's this permaculture documentary. Anyway, I finally watched it. Well, we finally watched it together. And it just blew my mind. And I remember it was like all the lights went on in my brain and in my spirit and
you were
everything.
unstoppable after that.
And I'm still unstoppable. It was like, this is it. This is what I've been looking for that I didn't know I was looking for.
Yeah.
It started from then, didn't it? And now
you're the king of
now
compost.
I'm the composter. Very enthusiastic. Yeah.
And experimental.
Yeah. So I've composted a leather shoe.
Yep.
Old pairs of jeans. Probably other stuff that I just can't think of right now, but a wallet. I think a wallet is still working its way through the compost. But so that's how it started. And the rest is history in a way. Yeah. All right, let's do the black compost bins.
Here he comes, the king of compost.
So knowing nothing about composting when we started out, the first thing I did was get a hold of 2 of these. I think I paid $20 for them. And so this is where we started our compost journey, essentially. Over the time, what I've ended up doing with these is putting sort of the stuff that we don't want in all the other composts. If we have onion skins, citrus peel, that sort of thing, just that stuff you don't really want in compost generally, we stick it in here because it's more of a long-term strategy. And every once in a while I give it a stir. So what else do we have in there? Potato peel, put pistachio shells, those sorts of things, and bits of cardboard and stuff.
Something interesting, and that doesn't stink.
Yeah, isn't that funny? So try and get in and just lift it up, just to get a bit of air in there.
Yeah, cool.
The idea with this is just to fill it for maybe a year, because it takes a while to fill, and let it break down, and then at some point put it in the food forest as a layer, for the lasagna method. So it's not the greatest compost, I think, to put in for seedlings or for raised beds, that sort of thing, because it's still breaking down, and so it's much better for adding to a food forest where it will continue to break down. There we go, that's a good one. I'll give it one more.
How'd you make your spiral?
I think I used a clamp.
Vice?
Vice,
Yeah.
thank you. just a vice, I think, and just sort of
Yeah,
twisted it around. It's not the best, but it does do the job. Just got to be careful. Once you get it in a good way, it sort of acts like a spring, and if you're not careful, it could spring out. So you've got to know what you're doing. So that's what we do with the black barrels, which is good because we still get a compost out of the stuff that we normally wouldn't want to put in compost. I should add that when my eyes were open to permaculture, I sort of paradigms were broken, and then all of a sudden you sort of see landscape differently, and you're like, well, every front yard could become a place where food can be produced, and nature strips and all of that. It's like all of a sudden there's an abundance of land. Somehow we've just been conditioned to having grass, and of course I was conditioned to the grass thing, because the very first thing I did, it's almost like you start where you start, but that was we soon moved on from that, and it was like, let's get rid of grass and add it.
I think that documentary helped.
Yeah, maybe I started with grass before the documentary.
Yeah, you wanted to grow the lawn.
That's right.
And I think maybe that's why I was showing you the documentary, because this is why I haven't been watering the lawn.
Yeah. Yep. Welcome to the first ever hot compost that I've ever done. There's, I think, 4 or 5 layers of weeds, paper, cardboard, and grass clippings. And on Thursday last week it was about this high. Just have a look at it, because I've never seen it. So it's been 4 days today. It's almost at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It's about 48 degrees Celsius. So we'll come back in a few more days and see what it looks like. Some of the weeds are still very much intact. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when I start turning it. Add a little bit of water as I go. It's an interesting smell. Some of them not pleasant. I don't quite know what it is I'm looking at, so I'm just showing you guys. The smells are certainly getting funkier. One thing I'm noticing is that the deeper I go into the pile, the drier it seems to be becoming. It's kind of starting to look a little bit more like soil from when I started. Today is day 20 of the first compost pile that I put together, and I'm going to open it up and have a look at it. It's certainly broken down more. I'd be interested in other people's thoughts on how it's looking after 20 days. The idea that I have at the moment is to have 3. There's pile number 2 and there's pile number 3. It's pile number 1. Is having like a rotation system. We want to put soil on top of this to create garden beds. So we need a lot of soil. So this is sort of the humble beginnings of trying to generate our own soil from our grass clippings and weeds and old paper, just to try and get the ball rolling. We had about 100 millimetres of rain in less than a week. I'm noticing as I go further down that there's more and more broken down material. I'm not sure if that's because it gets hotter further up until it breaks down quicker. It's good to see worms in it. I've just turned it for the 3rd time, and I think it's been about 3 weeks, so I'm averaging once a week. And I actually don't know when it's at the right stage to use. I think it's still needing some more time to break down, but I'll just do a little introduction to this, because you can see everything on there, right? And then you'll be able to...
I can't see that. I'm too short, man.
You can't see it?
If it's like that, I can. He's got a whole system worked out. He even uses a spreadsheet. I don't think he'll tell you that, though.
So hello.
Hello. Happy New Year.
after trying the hot compost bins on the ground, we were given the idea to try using pallets to create compost bays and doing them that way, and that's what you can see behind me. So initially I built these 3 compost bays using the pallets and star pickets. So just a star picket on each point, and then just putting the pallet over the top of the star pickets, and then the back ones are sort of just wide in position. So I started with 3, the idea being that you start in a bay and then turn it, but then I'd have to turn it back this way and then turn it back in that way. And so over time I've extended it. So then I built this 4th bay here, and then I think last year built this bay, which is bay number 1. And there's the other 4 bays. So looking at it from the other angle, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So yeah, the idea is to pump as much compost out of this system as possible to put in our raised beds, top them up after each growing period, use it in seed raising and anything we can. So we start here, and I built it higher because if I was to fill it to here, by the time, like, just with it settles and reduces in size, so it would be like this big. So I started with a taller bay. I don't always get it this high, but it gives me the option, if I've got enough material, to get it nice and high, so then by the time it reduces to a decent size. So we start here and we turn it to bay 2, and then 3, 4, and then 5 at the end there. So here I'm turning a compost from the 4th to the 5th bay, and I have to say, every time I do a compost, I'm amazed at how it works, or that it works. It's like watching a miracle that you can be a part of. I still feel a bit of warmth in this material. I did test it before, before turning it, and it was 31 degrees Celsius. And further down, it's not quite dripping, so I'm not sure how I'm getting that on camera, but it's breaking down nicely. For the past 7 years, we've been essentially laying down the infrastructure. We still have a lot to learn when it comes to plants and growing things. But for the most part, other than working on the house, we have tried to plant the rain and the shade and build soil. The plan is that eventually this will lead to an abundance of growth that will further enhance the compost system. Next, we'll further discuss the compost system and how we are using the compost in the garden. But first, a brief word from Kate about our beeswax candles. On to the next one.
G'day, this is Kate from Narrow Road Living. I'd just like to take a moment to let you know about the beeswax candles that we make and sell. You may have seen us at local markets and shops.
Good morning, welcome to Dimboola Market.
But did you know that you can also shop online? We offer flat rate shipping anywhere in Australia, and it's possible to post overseas too. Beeswax is such a beautiful natural product, and it will purify the air while the candle burns. There's a faint honey scent and no toxic fragrances added. Are you ready to make the switch to more natural candles? Then visit our store, the link is in the description. Thanks for listening, and let's get back to the video.
When I first started out, because we had so much going on, I'd forget about the compost from time to time, so I might build a compost and leave it for 3 months and then turn it. And then leave it for more time, and so it would take ages to get a compost out of the system. In more recent times, now that things are settling down, the idea is to try to make a compost every month. So each month we make a compost. Theoretically, every month we get a compost out of the system that we can add to this extensive raised beds that, especially because they're newish,
they're dropping in height. We just need a lot of compost to build up the raised beds.
We purchased about 20 raised garden beds at the start of 2022, along with a huge truck of soil. It can be hard to get good quality soil at times, so we've been working hard to improve the quality of our soil with compost, worm castings and worm tea. We still have a few more beds to put together and fill, so our compost system is working very hard.
So the other thing is materials. You sort of get to this realization that you can't have enough input.
More input, more input.
Over time you start to try to figure out how you can get resources. So we do have a local gardener that drops off his grass clippings every so often, and so that really forms the basis of the compost pile. So I usually add like a wheelbarrow or two of grass clippings and then all the other additions.
No doubt someone will ask about rodents and like...
Very rarely.
Yeah.
I think I've seen a mouse in this system one time. I think because it's a hot compost and a lot of the materials that mice and rodents want is embedded in the middle of the pile, so I don't think it attracts mice. And also that material breaks down really quickly, and so you're left with a pile that's still breaking down, but it's not really got anything that rodents really want to get their mouths onto.
Have you ever put a dead animal in a compost?
I'm sure I have. I'm always a little reluctant.
Bird. Yeah, you did.
we put that bird through. It's amazing, like there's no evidence of that bird at the end of the process.
How do you go with your ratios?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say for anyone that's starting out, you gather the materials that you can get your hands on, and then from there you work out what to put in. I mean, it's always good to get a chart. You can find them online with the browns and the greens, but after a while you get a sense of how much to put of each, and then make adjustments along the way.
Cool.
Hey?
Very cool.
Yeah. Oh, not quite. I think that's what it's supposed to look like.
I can hear it.
Yeah. But it's, it's firming up.
Yeah.
But it's we'll put it through a...
Do you ever add water?
Yes. Yeah, always.
How often?
So in more recent times, because I've been doing them once a month, I've been able to, I've actually got an Excel spreadsheet going now where I'm monitoring everything that I'm putting in and when I put them in and how much, to then figure out how to get it as hot as possible for as long as possible to break it down as fast as possible. So I add the grass and then all of the other inputs, and then usually 1 or 2 watering cans of water, and then repeat until I've basically run out of material. And then when I'm turning it, I often find that it's quite dry. It's hot, but it's still somewhat dry. So I'm starting to add more water at the start to see what happens. And then also adding water in the turn to try to keep the moisture content up. So I've added a ton of water in this one to see what would happen. But I find that throughout the process for me, I've got to add water usually with every turn.
Do you ever pee on your compost?
I wanted to keep that private. Yes, I do. So I do add that material to the compost pile, which is actually very good. I mean, that's part of permaculture, is you know, it used to all go down the toilet, and now that's being saved and put in compost so you're saving on the flush, but you're also using that material to help break down your compost pile. In videos, if you ever see me using a red watering can, that's the material that's in there.
I have to say, it's a very satisfying feeling to be harvesting one's own compost and using it in the garden. We can get quite hot late springs, and our summers are very harsh, and so the comfrey we planted in the veggie garden would die back before it had a chance to grow. So here, I'm transplanting the comfrey to the food forest behind the north fence, where it gets partial shade for most of the day. In a short time, the comfrey has bounced back, requiring a lot less watering.
Do you have a compost thermometer?
Yeah, I use a thermometer, and the idea is to get it at around 60, well, they say I think between 50-55 degrees Celsius to 70-75 degrees Celsius. So that's what I try to get. I like it, but like 65-70, you know, you're sort of right at the temperature you want to have it at. And the key is, for me, is to try to keep it at that temperature for as long as possible. So I tend to test the compost pile 2 days after building the pile, and then in each, generally every time I go to turn it, I'll test it before I turn it. So once you start getting used to building the compost, you can start to experiment, try different things. Yeah.
So why do you keep it covered?
I didn't for a long time, and I found that especially over winter it would get really wet and basically go anaerobic and smelly, and so this helps keep trap the heat that's generated from the compost and keep it you're able to control it a lot better. Makes sense, because when you're adding it, there's all this air and gaps in. It's fluffy, yeah, like a cake. And I actually look at compost like a recipe, and that's maybe something to think about when you're building your compost, especially for the first few times. Is look at it like you're making a cake and you're adding your ingredients. And if you add too much of one thing or too much of another thing, it will spoil it. So that's how I look at it. So I'm not super happy with this because it's a bit clumpy. But what I do with this is the stuff that I would sift, and you know, I could actually add more water to that, I reckon. But actually, it's interesting. The one that's not as old as this, I think this is about 80 days old, maybe. This one I think's just broken down a lot. No,
Your wallet.
There's the wallet. So obviously there's a lot of material there that can't break down. So that'll probably just go in the bin afterwards. But I mean, this is in a better.
Well, I used some from the potting station this morning, and it was really dark.
Yep. So that's beautiful. To be honest, like if you can get like it holds its thing, but then it can just break down beautifully. So yeah, that's ready to use.
Sweet.
Which is awesome. Let's show you so basically my way of doing it is, if it's like this, I don't think I'd need to sift that. I could just put that in a wheelbarrow and put it straight on a raised bed. This stuff here, that's a bit more, just a different mix. So there's bits of wood, and it's just not broken down as well as the other one. I'd sift that and then either use it on the garden or put it in seed raising mix. Yeah, so it's sifted so that it's broken down nicely, and then we can add the other elements to make seed raising mix.
While sifting compost can be time consuming, it makes great top dressing for raised beds and seed raising mix. By sifting the compost, you get to remove any rubbish that may have found itself in the pile, like sticky tape from cardboard boxes, and you also get to rehome any worms that make it into the compost. We put ours in the food forest. After each harvest, we like to top up our raised beds with fresh compost, straw and worm tea. We originally filled our tall raised beds with wood to about halfway, so for the first couple of years the beds reduced in height as everything settled down. So we have needed extra compost to fill our raised beds between harvests. Moving finished compost soil to the propagation compost bay is a very good feeling. And the feeling of newly sifted compost between the fingers is awesome.
If I don't have time to sift this, because it takes a while, I would put this at the bottom of a new raised bed. So this is a pile
that I just dumped at the bottom of the raised bed. You can see an old bone there. And I'll probably do that again and then top dress it with more sifted material. So that enables me to, like, if I need to turn all my piles and they're all full, I can just grab it out of there really quickly, dump it in the bottom of a raised bed and continue the turning process. Well, eventually we'll be able to, use the leaves in autumn, and chuck them in the pile, but also just add some shade here because we don't need the sun for the hot compost that generates its own heat. This was a blank area and just gets baked by the sun, so we wanted to plant some shade here.
Thanks heaps for watching to the end. Subscribe for more videos and give the video a like. Check out our amazing beeswax candles. The link is in the description, and we'll see you in another video.